Hello, and welcome back to episode 2 of Dark Academia Queen. I'm still going back and forth if I want to change it to Dark Academia for Insomniacs, but that might be a later project later on down the road. But this is a solo episode. Um, my part-time co-host is my part-time co-host and I are working on another topic we can do together. She's also about to start her PhD program, and I'm trying to give her time to prepare for that as well. But last episode we talked about Edgar Allan Poe, truly one of my favorite poets and authors. The guy was very dark and twisted, if you ask me. Um, but anyway, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. You can also da 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 go check out my sister's podcast if you want to check those out. It's called Just a Breezy Chat, True Crime Lounge, and Sassy Southern Belle. All very different topics, as you can imagine, just like me. But one thing's for certain, I love dark academia, not just the aesthetic, but the whole topic. I love history. I'm a huge history nut, so I love talking about these kind of topics. And one of the topics I love to talk about is what we're talking about today. Southern Gothic. It's one of my favorite genres of literature of all time. And I have to say, the best example is going to be V.C. Andrews and William Faulkner. Those are the two best examples I can personally tell you. And V.C. Andrews, if you go back and read her books, she's known for the Flowers in the Attic series, and she's also, and William Faulkner's known for A Rose for Emily, which I was originally going to do a video on him and then talk about A Rose for Emily, but I decided just do a whole episode first on Southern Gothic because a lot of people, you'll be surprised, don't know what it is, and they're just now finding out a lot about what it is. But even I will say now, there's a lot of great literature genres of literature that I love, but Southern Gothic stands out to me. I think it's just because I don't know. Could it be I went through that emo phase in high school but never really left, or what? But I'm also a very dark and disturbed person with my dark and dry sense of humor, so that might add into it. So I can't really tell you why I love Southern Gothic, but I truly suggest go and read any of the V.C. Andrew books, or you can check the movies out on Lifetime if you don't want to read the books. But anyway, um, but you're probably wondering what exactly is Southern Gothic? Why am I rambling on about this? Well, it is an artistic subgenre that is mostly seen in fictional writing, but is also seen in country music, film, theater, and television. It is heavily influenced by Gothic elements from the South. And the most common themes you will find are deeply flawed, disturbing, and eccentric characters who may be involved in decayed or derelict or hoodoo in grotesque situations, and other sinister events relating to or stemming from poverty, alienation, crime, or violence. Now, where exactly did the origins of Southern Gothic come from? How did this come about? Well, the elements of Gothic treatment in the South became apparent during the ante and postbellum 19th century in the grotesque of Henry Clay Lewis and the idealized representation of Mark Twain. The genres were consolidated, however, in the 20th century when dark romanticism, southern humor, and a new literary naturalism emerged, a new powerful and form of social critique. It was kind of like it's like there was this Bermudic material that was largely a reflection of the culture that existed at the time. Believe it or not, we're not as free as liberal thinking as we are today, people. Just saying. Like, I know that's probably gonna get me canceled right there, probably. That's kind of sad when you live in a world where you have to like say something like this in fear of being canceled. But thing is, this video today, if you're not we're gonna talk about a lot of topics that um this falls under. So if this is not the episode for you, if you're gonna be close minded and try to argue against me and everything I say. But I'm just letting you know what Southern Gothic is, what about the Civil War and all of that. So let's go ahead and clarify that, okay? So if this is not your, if this is something you feel like will not be a good episode for you, go ahead and click out of it. But before I continue, please hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. And comment a topic you want me to talk about next, okay? But as I was saying, this was following the collapse of the Confederacy because of the Civil War, and it left a vacuum in its cultural and religious values. This resulted in poverty and lingering business over the loss of the Civil War. And in the region during the Reconstruction, that excavated that racism, excessive violence, religious extremism, and endemic to the region. Now, speaking of the Civil War, what was the last state out, first state in? If you know, please comment your answer below. For all you history and Civil War buffs out there, this should be an easy answer. And let's use the honor system, guys. You might have to Google it, but try not to, please. You learn something new every day. That's what I love. Now, the term Southern Gothic was originally critical and dismissive. In fact, Ellen Glasgow would use this term in which she would refer to the writings of Esperin Cardwell, William Faulkner. She was also included the authors that she called Southern Gothic School in 1935. Here, what she would state that their works would be filled by aimless violence and fantastic nightmares, and it was viewed as negatively at first. Eudora Welty would say that they better not call me that. And another prominent, and who was another prominent feature in the Southern Gothic in its relation to voodoo and hoodoo. That's a separate video topic for another time. Well, episode topic. Um, what are some characteristics of Southern Gothic and the excellent example of this Soar Plantation House? The setting of these works are distinctly Southern. Some of these include exploring madness, decay, despair, continuing pressures of the past upon the present, that particularly with the lost souls of the dispossessed Southern aristocracy, aristocracy, and continued racial hostilities. Um, Southern Gothic is particularly focused on the South's history of slavery, racism, fear of the outside world, and violence, and it was a fixation with the grotesque and tension between realistic and supernatural elements. Um, Similar to Gothic Castle, Southern Gothic gives us the decay of the plantation of the post Civil War South. Villains who disguise themselves as innocents or victims and found Southern Gothic literature, especially stories of Flannery O'Connor, such as the Good Country People and The Life You Say May Be Your Own, giving us a blur between victim and villain. Okay, now Southern Gothic literature was set out to expose the myth of old antebellum South and the narrative of idyllic past of social, familial, and racial denials and suppression. You're probably wondering who some Southern Gothic authors are. Here is something interesting to add that Eudora Welty was labeled Southern Gothic author, much to her dismay. It is also mentioned that Sherry Priest has been identified as a modern Southern Gothic writer. But some famous ones happen to include V.C. Andrews, as I talked about earlier, William Faulkner, Edgar Allan Poe, even though his work is usually described as dark romanticism, as Screen Cowell, Harry Crews, who has been called the Hieronymus Botch of the Southern Gothic, Harper Lee, Flannery O'Connor, Tennessee Williams, and Thomas Wolfe. Now, it's important to also note that a resurgence of Southern Gothic themes and contemporary fiction have been identified to the work of figures such as Barry Hannah, R. Lansdale, Helen Ellis, and Cherry Priest. Now, there are several media outlets that show Southern Gothic films such as Haunted Spooks, Streetcar Named Desire, The Night of the Hunter, Baby Doll, To Kill a Mockingbird, Hurry Sundown, The Begall Deliverance, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, um, That Dreaded Towns, Dreaded Sundown, The Color Purple, Fried Green Tomatoes, and Sling Blade. Now, in music, it can be known as Gothic Americana or dark country. And this is a genre of country music that was rooted in early jazz, gospel, Americana, Gothic rock, and post punk. And the lyrics are often focused on dark subjects. These genres share like a thematic connection with the Southern Gothic genre of literature, and indeed is parameters of what makes Southern Gothic um, Southern Americana makes something Gothic Americana appears to have more in common with the literary genres than the traditional musical ones. Songs examine poverty, criminal behavior, religious imagery, death, ghost, family, love, lost, alcohol, murder, the devil, and betrayal. Not some songs would include, but are not limited to um, Bruce Springsteen's Nebraska from 1982, which was influenced by the writings of Flannery O'Connell. Athens, Georgia-based alternative rock band REM, which displayed a Southern Gothic influence with their third album, Fables of the Reconstruction. J.D. Wilkes, frontman of the band Legendary Shack Shakers, described Southern Gothic music as an angle that was something grotesque and beautiful in the tradition of the South, the backdrop of Southern living. Ethel Kane, her music has been described as a Southern Gothic pop, often focused on themes of intergenerational traumas. Don't get me started on traumas. There's a whole separate podcast you could go listen to on that one. Um, Christianity, grotesque violence, poverty, abuse, and often she accredits her inspiration to works of Southern Gothic writers such as Flannery O'Connor. There was a lot of influential Gothic authors, Southern Gothic authors. Now, in theater, you can also see Southern Gothic genre as it comes to the stage in many different ways. Southern Gothic fiction writers like Carson McCullers, Zora Neale Hurston adapted their own work for the stage in language heavy productions of the Member of the Wedding and Spunk. Playwrights like Tennessee Williams, Beth Henley, Jacqueline Goldfinger translated elements of Southern Gothic aesthetic to the stage and added theatrical elements such as stylized movements and design. Some examples of this would include the Pulitzer Prize winner, A Streetcar Named Desire, um, the popular The Jacksonian from 2014, and the Yale Prize winner Bottlefly 2018. In addition, many Southern Gothic novels and short stories have been adapted to the stage by artists who are not the original authors. The Tony Award winning musical The Color Purple by Alice Walker is a prime example of the approach of theatricalization of the Southern Gothic genre. The Color Purple is also an adaptation of the novel with music from Brenda Russell, Alice Wells, Stephen Bray, and Marsha Norman, which has been performed around the countries constantly since its premiere in the Alliance Theater in Atlanta in 2004. There also have been several photographic representations of the Southern Gothic. The images of the Great Depression photographer Walker Evans are seen to evoke the visual depiction of Southern Gothic. He would also claim that I can understand why Southerners are haunted by their own landscape. And another thing to note is Southern Gothic photographer Surrealist Clarence John Laughlin was who photographed cemeteries, plantations, and abandoned places throughout the American South, which was primarily in Louisiana for nearly 40 years. Okay, but that's it for this episode. What do y'all think of Southern Gothic? Let me know. Like, what is something you think I should talk about next on this podcast? I'm always open to ideas. Like I said, I love dark academia. It is something that I just love. And as I'm saying this, Taylor Swift's Cruel Summer is coming on, so I'm like trying to get through this conclusion so fast right now. But anyway, if you stayed until the very end and you remember my question I asked, what was the last state out, the first state in? During the Civil War? The answer is Tennessee. It was the last state out of the Union, the first state forced to join the Union after Tennessee fell. But that's it. I will see y'all next time. Y'all have a fabulous day.